Tell me about the looting, what's that really all about? Cause they throw away black lives like paper towels plus unemployment rate. What, 40 million now, killed a man in broad day, might never see a trial. We just wanna break chains like slaves in the south. Started in the north end, but we in the downtown. Riot cops try to block, now we got a showdown. Down.
All righty. Good evening, everyone. You are listening to WRD, the best radio station in Philadelphia, in my opinion, Black owned. We're here for it. Super excited to be on tonight. My name is Ernest Owens. I'm the special guest host for the 7 to 9 o'clock hour. And you're listening to WRD. And I'm here tonight to, talk about a couple of things that's going on in Philadelphia. We're going to have some special guests on tonight. The show is called Tonight on Word, so it's going down. The theme of the show tonight is going to be pretty much Philadelphia tonight. And pretty much what I mean by that is what's going on in Philly? What's popping in Philly? Politically, socially, we're going to be talking about Black-owned businesses. We're going to be spilling a little tea on that. We're definitely going to be talking about a lot of the politics, man, the activism that's going on. We also got a special guest lawyer that's coming in tonight. This lawyer had been in the news today in a story that I actually reported on for Philadelphia Magazine. And it's going to be great. Some people are tuning in tonight right now. Shout out to Maria and Sadia and Julie and all of you all, here tonight on Word. So I'm happy to be on. I'm normally on Sarita's show every Thursday. She has me come on do a segment during the 6 o'clock hour. So to be on tonight for 2 hours with you all to get into some of the tea and some of the stuff that's going on in Philadelphia, I'm super excited about that. So let's just talk about some of the news that's been going on. It's been crazy. I just want to start by just saying, RIP to Naya Rivera. She's the actress that used to be on the hit show Glee. You've probably been hearing about it over the weekend, but, sadly, they have, I guess, identified her body in California, basically with her son. She survived by her son, who is a young child who, I guess they were going on a boat ride or like a, not a hiking, but a, kayaking, I guess, experience. And she basically drowned, unfortunately. And so it's a little disheartening, to say the least. And I know there was a big, huge search for her over the weekend, and they just identified her body, and she passed away at a very young age. And a lot of big fans of Glee. I grew up on Glee. I remember her character very well. I remember her performance and just her, her celebrity history. I mean, even after Glee, she kind of made a name for herself. She definitely have stayed in the media and definitely have kept a big name. But Hollywood is definitely mourning her, and we're definitely mourning her over here. She was only 33 years old. And it's just devastating. It's very devastating. So in Philadelphia today, I mean, there's a lot of news going on. First big story, is that Ken Rothweiler, who was the Fox 29 legal analyst, has said that he was fired by Fox 29 for being, quote unquote, too pro Black Lives Matter. And so a lot of people are, have been on social media talking about it. It's been a chatter around town. When I covered this, when I covered this scene or whatever, the situation, I was shocked. But one of the things that really have caught my attention is that, first of all, what people have to understand is that we're at a time where, yes, there is a big talk around town about Black Lives Matter, pro-Black Lives Matter, this and that. And there's a lot of people that are, making it a big scene, talking about the marketing, talking about all of the things that, we know to be true. For many of us, especially Black people, we've already dealt with this. We already know, pretty much that our lives matter. But what we have seen time and time again is this consistent need, in other parts, right? Our white peers, our other folks that are now joining in on this battle chant, right? This call for this. And it's hard, right? It's hard to know, is it genuine, right? When do Black Lives Matter when it's not trending on Twitter, when people are not able to make money, for it. It's a big deal. And we need to talk more about that and, really have those conversations. A guest I'm going to have on the 8 o'clock hour who is an organizer, community organizer, from Philadelphia, has done local grassroots activism and work in the community for years, who knows Philly well and has seen some major, changes in the conversation around activism. And as somebody who's done the work for a long time, they are grateful and very happy to see people engaged, but there's ways that we got to be better at it. And I think this new wave of activism and people showing up to protest and engaging in this type of way, there's a way to do it, y'all. And so it's going to be really interesting to see, how some of this plays out. In other news, musician Chance the Rapper is publicly defending his support for Kanye West, who has declared himself to be running for president. It's a little weird because, as of right now, Kanye hasn't really submitted himself to doing, any other things. A lot of people are being very critical, has been critical about, Kanye running, saying, is he deflecting, taking away votes from Biden, who was the presumptive Democratic nominee at this point? Is he basically a shrill for Donald Trump? There's a lot of different conversations that is being had right now about it. Personally, I could care less about hearing about Kanye West, to be honest, about what other stunt he's going to pull. I really just want the dude to just take a break from the spotlight, focus on himself, take some time and just get out of the spotlight because, fame is a drug at times. And I think a lot of celebrities, a lot of people, put so much emphasis on being seen on the scene. We see this in Philadelphia, right? There's a lot of folks in Philadelphia who are addicted to the fame. They want to be at every event. They want to be on every panel. They want to be everywhere for everybody. And, I grew up hearing at a young age that, listen, if you want to be everybody's friend and be everything for everybody, that's when you fail. When you're trying to be everybody's friend, when you're trying to be everything for everybody, that's when things get a little rocky. And I'm seeing a lot of people who are having those types of experiences in their real lives. And it's deep, right? Because you consistently find yourself in this trap where you want to be approved, you want to be seen, you want to be liked, you want to have the followers, you want to have all this attention. But at the same time, look what happens. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of stuff going on. Somebody from Arizona is watching, Arnetta. Shout out to Arnetta from Arizona for watching. Thank you. There's a lot of things being, talked about. A lot of callers. Let me share this real quick. So, there's a lot of stuff going on. So hold on. I got a little stagnant there. But, pretty much, where I stand on this issue in general is that, let's really get serious here. November 3rd, 2020 is going to be the upcoming presidential election. And I know there's people, consistently, banging on your head, telling you, vote, vote, vote. And at the end of the day, yes, right? Voting is important. But what we got to be mindful of is that we got to really, get away from a lot of these distractions. And there's a lot of distractions that we're witnessing right now. We're witnessing a lot of distractions happening politically in Philadelphia right now. And it's one of those things where we have seen too many people get caught up in, the personal politics. People are really caught up in trying to get, their voices heard, this spotlight, this fame. And, it's crazy. Like, for example, last week, there was an attorney, I won't name names, but they complained up and down social media about how they didn't get the front cover of a news story because of a case that they were they weren't even the lead counsel on, but they were a co-counselor on, and they were mad that they did not get a lot of press or front page press for what they did. And I think personally, we got to remind ourselves, what are we doing the work for? If the work is for justice, let's do justice. Let's do work. Let's do the work. If it's about, going out of our way to really make a difference, let's focus on that. And I think too often whether you're a politician, whether you're an attorney, whether you're a civil rights activist, what are we doing this for, right? We're doing this for the people, essentially, right? Yes, our self-care is important. Absolutely. But at the same time, we have to be mindful of the roles that we play and the role that we all contribute, and if we're doing it for the right reasons. And I always tell people, growing up, one of the most important things for me has been about being intentional. And intentionality is what we say, right? What does it mean to be intentional? What does it mean to have a focus on what your purpose is and how you want to execute that in front of others? Or even how you show up in certain spaces. How are you showing up? How are you engaging people, in your community, right? Are you the person that comes around in need only? Or do you show up in times of, check-in, right? And checking in without wanting something. Ask yourself what kind of person you are. What kind of community are you? Are you only the person that come around when you need something? That's when you call. That's when you reach out. Or are you someone who makes it a point to consistently be a community player, to build community with people, to reach out and have different phone calls, to check in, to do all of those things? And tonight we're going to be talking to some people who do. Some people that really do, put their money where their mouth is. That really, not just, and when we talk about money, not physical money. Some people do, right? Some people are philanthropists. Some people do contribute and give back in that kind of way. But not everyone has to. And I think what we have to realize is that there are different forms of activism. And we're going to talk about that on the show tonight. How important it is to recognize that, everyone thinks it's important to march. And that's true. Yes, march. That's one way, but that's not the only way. And personally, I feel like there are people who have money and they have resources and they have things, and you don't have to necessarily always, if you're a millionaire and you have the ability to give money and use your influence and use your professional circle to make a big deal of things, why not do that? You know what I'm saying? Why not put that energy into using your resources in different ways? Why only stay fixated on one aspect of how you can contribute? That's something that, that has been on my mind for a while. And with the news that's coming out today, it's just a lot of things going on. There's a lot of people who are, leaving us. John Travolta's wife, Kelly Preston, has passed away. Nelson Mandela's daughter has passed away, which is even just devastating, right? I mean, COVID-19 is taking a lot of people out. And I really want people to understand that it's not hard to wear a mask. I saw a video, and some of you probably seen the video already, this disturbing video that was on Facebook that showed a group of people, I think they were in Southwest or South Philly, I think it was Southwest, but they were partying like it was 1999. I mean, literally, masks, no masks. Some people had masks, some people didn't, but they were just out there. Not at a protest, not at a march, just out partying, just out here careless, like straight up careless. They didn't care about any of the things. So that was hard. That was hard to watch personally. That was hard to, just take in. And so we're about to go into the next, into a couple. We got to pay some bills, and before, in our first guest actually is going to be Ken, this attorney who has been doing the work. Ken Rothweiler, who is a trial injury attorney, has worked with various minority communities, Black and brown communities, helping families get settlements, getting support, and he's got a big case that he's working on that you will not believe. So you're tuned in tonight on WRD, or tonight on Word, is either way. But I like to say tonight on WRD because I love the creativity of it. But tonight on Word, we're going to talk to Ken Rothweiler tonight, and he'll be on Fuse. So until then, we have to pay some bills, and I'm going to have me a quick little bite, and we'll be right back.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your drive home in the happy hour with Sincerely Sarita, Monday through Thursday 4 till 7 p.m. right here on Word Radio 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
These are the sounds of a dinner that almost didn't happen, a dinner now served thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
WordRadio.com.
My dad came to live with us last month, and it's going pretty well.
I feel like I never have time for myself.
With him being around more, it really lets us catch up on things.
His memory isn't what it used to be.
We get up and we have coffee.
He usually wakes up at 4:30.
Then we go for a walk.
He needs lots of my attention.
I do need to keep an eye on his medications, though. That's important.
Sometimes I feel like a pharmacist.
I'd say John and the kids are adjusting pretty well.
They honestly have no idea what I'm going through.
It can be a little challenging.
Help.
But so far, so good.
I could really use just a little help.
For those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers for advice, tips, and support. Together, let's help each other better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at Forward. Word TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Word Radio 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Independent Black Media.
And we're back. Thank you for coming back on. I'm back on. I had a quick little bite. And this is tonight on Word, which I'm excited to be on. Special guest filling in. And you're at the 7 to 9 o'clock beat, which is host, Ernest Owens, myself. So, we're about to get ready to have our guest come on. He's going to call in very soon. And I just wanted to preference everything by talking about who he is and what he's done. So Ken Rothweiler has been in the business for 40 years as a trial attorney. He is the former president of the Pennsylvania Lawyers Association, the Philadelphia Trial Lawyers Association, and, pretty much has a really strong case. He is one of the lead attorneys in a group called Abused in Scouting. He represents over 6,000 sexually abused Boy Scouts. The abuse occurred by scoutmasters that are over the last 50 years. And if you did not know this, the Boy Scouts are in bankruptcy with billions of dollars at stake. And so Ken Rothweiler is currently doing this. And let me be clear, for those who know about the Boy Scouts, right? This was an American institution. When I was growing up, I had friends who, participated in it. Boy Scouts, there are black Boy Scouts. There are black, brown. Everybody knows a Boy Scout or was a Boy Scout at one point in time. It is an institution that was one of the biggest, youth organizations of its time. And to see it, kind of disappear and evaporate, in the worst way, is devastating. So we're going to have him on the show to talk about the case, to talk about why he decided to get involved in it, all of that jazz. So we're waiting for him. And, I just have gotten a lot of people hitting me up and talking about some of the biggest issues that's been going on, especially given just the climate that we're in. So we got him on now. Ken is here. Let's bring him on.
How you doing, Ernest?
Hey, good evening. Thank you for coming on. This is, tonight on Word. And, I definitely, introduced you to the audience and to the guests listening tonight. It's a big show. This is a really big deal, but I wanted you in your own words to tell us about yourself and, your work in Philadelphia. You are a familiar face. People definitely have seen you on air. So tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been in Philadelphia practicing law for 40 years. I'm a trial lawyer, so I do my work in a courtroom. The firm is Eisenberg Rothweiler. We're at the corner of 17th and Spruce and have been there for about 25 years. I try catastrophic cases, so I try very seriously injured cases involving, brain damage and paraplegic, quadriplegic. I've been active in the trial lawyer community. I've been president of both the Pennsylvania trial lawyers and the Philadelphia trial lawyers, and I was a legal analyst on TV for about 10 years. Wow.
So you've had a career in this. And so you're, what is this case? This is a big deal. This case that you decided to be a part of, that a lot of this has been big. It's done with the Boy Scouts, an American institution that is now headed into bankruptcy. And tell us about this.
Yeah, the Boy Scouts were actually incorporated by Congress back in 1916, and they have an illustrious history of, a lot of famous people were Eagle Scouts and the Boy Scouts over the years. But some years ago, it was determined that the Boy Scouts had a lot of pedophiles in their ranks, and over the years, there's been litigation against the Boy Scouts, and finally, this February, 2020, they filed for bankruptcy because of the number of claims that they have against them, puts them in a situation where they can't adequately compensate all of the young men that were sexually abused.
Wow.
Right now I represent about 6,000 men that are now basically in their 60s. This abuse, with most of these people that were abused in Boy Scouting, they were abused somewhere between the ages of 10 and 14. That's typically when they were abused, because that's when they were at a vulnerable point, and for some reason they were, prey for pedophiles. And this happened. This has been going back to the 1940s. So this is nothing new. And the Boy Scouts, we've done a lot of discovery in these cases. The Boy Scouts knew about this for a very long time and basically hid it. Didn't bring it to the attention of the public. Trial lawyers in a courtroom brought it to the attention of the public, and now they're in a situation where they can't compensate all the claims, so we're in bankruptcy court fighting with them.
Whew, that's a lot. That's a lot. That is a lot. So let's start a little bit from the beginning. So are these victims that we're talking about, 6,000, which is a lot of people, are they, are all of them older? Is there any recent cases that may have happened maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Or are these, only ones that date back a couple of decades? Like, what's the range?
Yeah, they're mostly older cases, but I do have clients that are in their 30s. So it probably happened to them maybe 15 years ago. So you're talking about like 2005. certainly after 2000. So I consider that to be fairly recent. My oldest client is somewhere in their 90s. So, that happened maybe, 75 years ago. So that's, dating all the way back. So it really kind of runs the gamut, but it shows you that these pedophiles have always been a part of Boy Scouting probably since the beginning.
And this settlement money, so they ran out of so much, there was so many victims that they ran out of settlement money to the point that they go bankrupt. So what is the likelihood of potentially getting money from them in bankrupt court? Like, what is the possibility? What's the likelihood of that happening?
Well, when we say they went bankrupt, that's because they don't have enough money to operate and pay the claims that are against them. However, there is insurance money, and the Boy Scouts have had insurance going back into the 1940s. We're doing an analysis of their insurance money now, and we think that they have billions of dollars worth of insurance. Of course, the insurance companies don't want to pay any of that money, so we're going to have to fight them out in court. But there is insurance money to be had for the abuse victims.
And to be clear, I mean, they are like a over 100-year institution.
Correct.
So I can imagine that an institution that old. I mean, were they getting federal aid?
No, they weren't getting any federal aid, but they were getting a lot of money from donations. I mean, like I said, they have an illustrious history of people over the years that were Eagle Scouts and so forth. A lot of famous people, and they get a lot of money, a lot of donations. They have basically an endowment where they get lots of money. Also, they have these camps all around the country. There's actually 261 camps. And some of these camps are very profitable during the summertime. I think a year ago they had the Worldwide Jamboree where they had like 50,000 scouts joining scouts here in the United States for a big jamboree. And, there's obviously fees for all of that. So they were a pretty solvent organization until this sexual abuse started hitting them in the courtroom.
Absolutely. So what has been your biggest challenge? I mean, are people just like, forget the Boy Scouts justice? Are you getting pushback? Are people pushing back against this? What is the situation that's happening here?
I think people are understanding how much sexual abuse there is in our society because of the cases against the Catholic Church, the Archdiocese, USA Gymnastics. I mean, it's happening on all different organizations. So I don't think that people were necessarily surprised, nor are they really pushing back. I mean, most people think that, anybody that was sexually abused should get just compensation. I've talked to a lot of these men that are some of them are close to 70. I just had a conversation with one last night that I started to talk about his abuse because I had to fill out the appropriate forms for him to be a claimant. And the abuse happened with him 45 years ago, and as I was talking to him, he broke down and started to cry, which is not unusual, but it was amazing to me that something that happened 45 years ago or 55 years ago still has its effect on these survivors today. So this is something that they've lived with their whole life, and it's never going away.
And how many lawyers are on it? So you say you're one of the lawyers. How many lawyers are having to litigate like all of these? I mean, 6,000 people is heavy. How many lawyers are involved in this process?
Well, by the time there's a claims bar date, and that's a date in bankruptcy court where you have to file your claim by. So you have to get a lawyer and file your claim, and that date is November 16th, 2020. After that date, you cannot file a case against the Boy Scouts. We anticipate by that date there'll probably be over 20,000 claims. My group has 6,000 right now. We'll probably have over 10,000 by the time November comes around. And my law firm, which is at 17th and Spruce, Eisenberg Rothweiler, has joined with two other law firms around the country, Tim Kosnoff and Andrew Van Artsdale. And so our three law firms are going to be handling these 10,000 claims in bankruptcy court.
Interesting. And so what have been, I mean, this has been going on for, a while, and I mean, the history of it. I mean, I haven't recalled anything as I want to say what happened in the Catholic Church, you know, this type of level, this scale. I mean, I cannot recall. I mean, I'm 28, so, you know, I haven't seen anything as epic as this and this type of scale when it comes to sexual abuse of men since the Catholic Church.
That's true. These cases are actually, this is the largest sex abuse case in the history of the United States. There's never been a case with more sexual abuse victims than this case. I mean, it dwarfs the Catholic Church and the amount of people that were abused there. It also dwarfs USA Gymnastics and some of the other cases around the country. I mean, to be honest with you, Ernest, I don't even know right now. I'm just kind of guessing. Right now, there's 10,000 cases that we have in this bankruptcy. We think it'll double, but I don't know. It could triple. I mean, we're trying to let people out and the public know that if they were abused in scouting at any time since the beginning, I mean, it could be 40, 50 years ago, if they were abused, they need to come forward and be part of this bankruptcy.
And so how are you guys going about getting people? How are you reaching out? How are you planning to get people's attention? How are you planning to reach out and do this outreach? I mean, this is a massive scale. I would wonder, like, what is, I mean, I guess the publicity of it all may intimidate some of the step forward. But how do you plan to get as many victims to get a settlement of this type?
By doing shows like yours, Ernest. We're trying to get the word out any way we can. I mean, we have different ways. I mean, we've been talking to local newspapers. We constantly have outreach to all of the major metropolitan areas across the country where we've given interviews and so forth, letting people know about this. I think that most people at this point know about the claims against the Boy Scouts. What they probably don't know, is that the clock is ticking in terms of them bringing a claim against them. Because, like I said, once November 16th comes and goes, no more claims can be brought against the Boy Scouts because the bankruptcy will be the amount of cases that come into the bankruptcy will be closed.
Got you. And so, what we're looking at right now is November 16th, 2020.
Correct.
So this will be after the election. This would be, this would be time to reflect. I mean, right now is July 13th, so it's, but the 7th month, you have roughly 4 more months left.
That's exactly right.
And so has there been any clients you've had in Philadelphia that's in Philadelphia who,
yeah.
I mean, I can imagine, but have you had any, like a lot of Philadelphia victims and people in Philadelphia has come forward?
Yes, I represent, one client comes to mind. There's a number of people from the Philadelphia area.
Okay.
There's people from all across the United States, but I can tell you about one case that I had about 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, sexual abuse leaves such devastating effects on people. There, drugs, alcohol, suicide. I represented a young man who every week that when he went to his Boy Scout meetings, he was abused by his scout leader in the building that they had there. And what he did, he was so distraught that he drove his car. This happened like 15 years ago. He drove his car to the very parking place where the scout leader parked every week when he abused them, and he took a shotgun and put it in his mouth and pulled the trigger.
Oh my
Killed
God.
himself. It was horrible and it was dramatic, but he was really sending a message to the person that abused him that, 15, 20 years later, he was still suffering the effects of that abuse, and he wanted them to know that suicide was because of the abuse that was caused.
Got you. So this is a lot. So we're on live for people just coming on WRD. We have long-time, well-regarded trial attorney Ken Rothweiler, who has been for a while one of the lead attorneys in a group called Abused in Scouting, representing over 6,000 sexually abused Boy Scouts victims. And he is, on air to talk about this with us. And before wrapping up, because I do respect your time, how can people reach out to you? Because there is someone probably listening, there are Boy Scouts of all ethnicities in Philadelphia, and people may have not known that there is a November 16th deadline before this happened. Can you tell us briefly how they can find you, connect you before wrapping up?
Right. Well, they could call my law firm, which is Eisenberg Rothweiler, but probably easier for them to do is to go on the internet and look up Abused in Scouting. That's the name that we've created for all of the abuse victims that we have, Abused in Scouting, and there'll be a phone number there, and they can get right to us. We have people that will be asking them questions on the phone so that we get the appropriate information, and then they'll be part of the bankruptcy, and, you know, eventually when the bankruptcy ends, they'll be compensated.
Wow. Wow. Well, you heard it here, Abused in Scouting. That's all you have to do. Google it. The official website is there, and we're there. Thank you so much, Ken, for coming on the show. Really appreciate that information. I think it's very important and very insightful, and thank you for the work that you've been doing to spread this awareness and bring justice for these victims.
Thanks, Ernest. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks
no problem. Thank you. You too.
Okay. Take care.
So everyone, we are currently on Tonight on Word with special guest myself. We're going to pay some bills real quick and then get back into some news of the hour before we bring in our special guest at the 8 o'clock hour. But I do want to have some conversations about some politics and some things, because a couple of y'all have been asking me some questions about how I feel about these elections, some of this other stuff that's going on, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm going to grab me a quick little bite to eat at my dinner, and I'm going to see you in a few, but we got to pay some bills. Let's do it.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy.
When the coronavirus is over, what will you have to show for it? A cleaner home, yoga lessons you took online, old pictures of family members, a body a little bigger and heavier, too many refrigerator trips, eating too much, sad memories of family and friends who died or new babies born, talking on Zoom or other platforms with friends and clients or my new job. Learn to stop rushing here and there. Just start talking and playing with your folks. Maybe you got pregnant physically or pregnant with new ideas. May God bless you with peace for great living. Coronavirus is almost over. Folks, what will you have to show for it?
Be heard. Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation? Follow us on social media using the hashtag onWURD. Be heard. Stay connected to Word Radio. Independent Black Media.
So many times we say to ourselves, I need to make a difference. Well, your chance is here. Center in the Park is holding a virtual volunteer event Thursday, September 10th, 2020 from 1 p.m. till 3 p.m. Advocate for those who can't, support those who can, and ensure all long-term care residents live with dignity and respect. Register for the Ombudsman event at cipombudsman.eventbrite.com. We all feel better when we do something that matters and when we do something with purpose.
My mom is stronger than anyone I've ever known. Growing up when life got hard, her strength helped pull us through. Even after her heart failure diagnosis, she remained stronger than ever.
My family's support keeps me strong. Together, we're rising above heart failure.
Heart failure doesn't have to steal your strength. For simple steps you can take to help prevent, improve, or manage heart failure, go to riseabovehf.org.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. Word TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Independent Black Media.
We're back. All right. Tonight on Word, with your special guest, Ernest Owens. Here tonight, Monday night is going down. Thank you so much for tuning in. We just got off the call with Ken Rothweiler, who is a big deal, big deal attorney, and really just dropped some major, information bombs, for everybody, to talk about. So I'm curious about some of it. I've gotten some text messages from friends. They're shocked. They can't believe what's going on, and they can't believe what's happening. I didn't know. I mean, I knew that there was issues with the Boy Scouts, but what I did not know was that it was 6,000, over 6,000. I did not know that there was a huge settlement. I knew there was financial issues with the Boy Scouts, but the fact that this settlement is going on at this rate, I'm just floored. It's a lot. It's a lot. And to be clear, there's Boy Scouts of all ethnicities, racial identities, backgrounds, that have been victims. It's not just white kids, to be very clear. I think there's some stereotypes that people have made about the Boy Scouts, but there are some diversity. And all these victims are not white, to be very clear. And all of them, clearly have had experiences. You had victims that are as young as 30, in their 30s, to some that are as old as 90. And we don't talk enough about the gender differences in sexual abuse. It is a universal crime, and it should be addressed. And with the work that Ken Rothweiler is doing at his law firm and other people are doing is quite interesting. So I get into that segue to talk about these upcoming elections. Well, we have we just had the midterms, and I must say, I'm conflicted, y'all. I'm conflicted because I am tired. I am over it. I'm not over politics, but I am over the grandstanding. I think what I've seen since COVID-19 in Philadelphia politics has been two examples. You see a lot of, how do I put this? You see a lot of high achievement, right? You see people who are doing well. You see people that mean well, that's doing good work, that have a lot of bravery and integrity. But then you're also seeing people who are really using this opportunity to flex. There's no other way to say it. There is no other fancy way to say it. There are people who are looking for a camera for every single thing. They're looking for a spotlight. They're looking for, this buzz. And as a journalist, I must say, I have to keep it 100. As a journalist, it's I see things that the public don't see, right? I have this third eye where I am able to see things that people can't. And one of the things that I am able to see, as in again being a journalist, is how press hungry a lot of these elected officials are when it comes to doing the most basic things that they should be doing. Politician cuts a ribbon. They want press. Politician gives away free apples and oranges on the corner of 52nd Street. They want press. And I'm not talking about, I'm using examples. I'm not speaking on specific people or neighborhoods. I'm just giving examples here. There's an obsession with press. And, one of the things that has been very, difficult is that, when everything has been going on, a lot of the things that we have seen time and time again, especially during COVID, has been conversations around food donations. And these are good things, right? People should get access to food. But let me be very clear. People should have been getting access to free food and resources at this level and capacity before the pandemic. Philadelphia is the largest poor major city in the country. It's the poorest major city in America. And we have the second congressional district, I think, is the second largest food insecure congressional district, that's the White Evans district, in the country. Okay? So we have to take into account that there's a lot of issues. Like, I mean, there's gun violence, of course, but we have poverty. We have hunger, massive hunger. And there was an ad that Jason Derulo just did about Feeding America. And that hits home in Philly. And one of the things the pandemic has shown me and has pulled a veil over for me is that a lot of the things that I grew up thinking was not possible in this city, and I'm from different parts of the country. I was born in Chicago. I grew up in Houston, Texas. I came to Philadelphia. I've been living in Philadelphia for 10 years, and lived in Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, the entire 10 years. I love West Philly. But what is sad is that the lies and the things that I was told about opportunities and resources to grants to feeding people, and it shouldn't have taken a pandemic to do this. Like, I wonder if, like, for example, I'm just thinking out loud, if we had the statewide grants that we currently have right now for small businesses, especially Black businesses, what if we had given those types of grants to small Black businesses, I don't know, like before the pandemic? Like, what would that have been? Like, imagine if a lot of these small Black businesses was able to have some economic, some capital to do some good things, to do some things that mattered before the pandemic scared everyone to doing it, or before places got quote unquote looted and things got out of hand. I mean, could you imagine if people was investing in these communities before, protests and riots and things? Like, that's partially how we got the riot. It's because essentially people felt like, a lot of people, and I'm not saying everyone, right? There were some people that meant harm, but there were people who literally rioted because they felt like they weren't being heard. They felt like their communities were never going to get the spotlight, the attention, the resources. And they tried, right? These people tried their hardest to have this decorum, right? We talk all about decorum and professionalism and civility and respectability. People do that. Black people are probably the most respectable people in the United States, next to the natives. Like, when you're talking about a group of people who have been enslaved, abused, raped for centuries, that come to this country and have to show up to work, have to, live in a country where they basically have had a target on their back. It's hard. It's hard. I mean, we're talking about, like, since 1619 in this country. And we've been able to do all of these things in spite of those things, right? We've been able to create some of the biggest inventions: peanut butter, traffic stops, heart pacers, you name it, rock and roll, hip hop. We did it. We made it. We made all of that and more and so much more, right? And we did all that in spite of everything else that's happened to us. And so when we're talking about civility, we've been civil. Black people been civil. And the fact that at this point in time, we have learned that the polite and the nice and the shaking your hands and the table room talk, all of this stuff that we was told, that's how you do it. We've been buying into that for 400 years. And so it says something that in 2020, a year after the 400th anniversary of the first documented slaves to step foot, in Virginia, in 1619, we are now 401 years later, we are in this country having a racial uprising unlike anything anyone has seen that's been documented. They're saying the Black Lives Matter movement might be the most prominent, most largest mass movement in American history. Okay, that's a big deal. And we try to We sleep over that. Some of us have. But this is serious. This is this happening. The fact that you got that many people to come out in the middle of the biggest global pandemic we've seen in human history, in our lifetime, in our generation, a pandemic could not stop the biggest movement for Black lives, the biggest activism, physical movement of this nature in our entire history. It was Black people. It was Black people. And it was led and created by Black women specifically, 2 of which were queer Black women. And people can hate and they can get mad, they can feel how they want to feel, but we did that. We as a community, we did that. Millennials did that. A collective generation of people who were fed up did that. And we did it off of the shoulders of our ancestors, off of the intersectional teachings that we heard from people like Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, from Moya Bailey, and from other scholars that taught us to be inclusive. And the stuff that we're seeing today doesn't reflect some of the stuff that we are. We're going to talk about that with my next guest, after this upcoming break. We're going to talk about the intersectional politics. So I'm going to finish my Fogo de Chao. We got to pay some bills. And we're going to be right back in a couple of minutes. And it's about to go down. It's about to go down this call. We're really about to go in. Are y'all ready for this next hour? Because it's about to get real. We're about to have a real conversation. So I'm about to take my bite. See you soon.
Check out the Source lineup on Word Radio. Mondays, get ready for the rapping professor, Dr. Aaron Smith. On Tuesdays, it's Andrea Lawful Sanders. Then on Wednesdays, it's the Black Women's Leadership Council. On Thursdays, it's a second helping of Andrea Lawful Sanders. And on Fridays, it's Tiffany Bacon. Don't miss the Source. Monday through Thursday, 1 p.m. till 4 p.m. and Fridays, 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. Exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app.
Pico has many ways to help you lower your energy usage and save money at home. Here's one. Have an old working fridge or freezer in your garage or basement? Pico will pick it up, dispose of it responsibly, and give you a $75 rebate. That's right, $75. Plus, you can save as much as $150 a year on your energy bill by getting rid of it. Just schedule your pickup at pico.com/recycling or call 1-888-5-PICO-SAVE today. Be sure your fridge or freezer is plugged in and working at time of pickup.
Why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Having trouble finding Connor's middle school? Would you like directions?
No, why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Finding lowest airfare to Istanbul.
No, I'm tired of fighting with him over homework.
Home, walk, restaurant. Need a review?
No, I need help. He's very smart, but his mind wanders. He's disorganized.
I think I understand.
Oh, good.
Finding best potatoes for French fries.
No!
Russet, fingerling, Yukon Gold.
Why don't you understand me?
Sorry, I was trying to show how Connor feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
Brought to you by understood.org and the Ad Council.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck as a gift to Dave 2037, so he can spend it on things like anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman, something cool like that. I think Dave 2037 deserves it. He worked hard. What are you getting Steve 2037?
I guess I was thinking Steve 2037 would just fend for himself.
Well, all right, but don't expect to be borrowing my anti-gravity boots.
You want to have money in your future? You got to start saving now. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Hey, let's just hope Steve 2037 doesn't get his hands on a cool time machine, because he is going to come back here and knock some sense into you.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at forward. Word TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
So, we're back. And you are tuning in to Tonight on WURD. I'm your special guest, Ernest Owens. And we have our special, we have another special guest. We're going to be talking tonight about social justice movements, activism, some trends that need to stop. We're really going to be talking about bad trends. I mean, and what needs to stop. Because to be quite honest, based on the first half of the hour, we're in the final stretch, y'all. We're in the final hour. I want to talk to a real activist, but not even activist, an organizer. That's the better way to describe them. Their name is Abdul Ali Muhammad. They are one of the co-founders of the Black and Brown Workers Cooperative, which has produced a lot of transformational change in Philadelphia over the past several years. They are now doing a lot of community organizing work. They have a history in politics and doing political work to, fight for equity and inclusion and more. And, I'm happy for them to be on the show tonight to have a real conversation, honest conversation about really the Philadelphia trends that's been happening and movements and things of that nature. So welcome to the show, Abdul Ali.
Hey, Ernest.
Hey, what's up?
Thank you so much for having me on.
So getting into tonight's topic, first of all, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about some of what's been going on in Philadelphia? You lived in Philadelphia, most of your life, definitely deep in West Philly. You've seen the gentrification changes. Right now, Black Lives Matter is trending. How are you feeling about this? How are you feeling about just Philadelphia right now as we know it?
You know how I feel. I feel like...
our listeners want to know how you feel.
Yeah, no. I know. I'm getting to that. I think I feel so many different emotions around the current moment. I think that there are a lot of opportunists, right, who use movement spaces to augment their legacy, to occupy space, and that deflects from the critical work that needs to be done. So, you have this ego-driven desire sometimes to be, quote unquote, the leader of or the expert of, right? So you have those kind of people, right, emerging or re-emerging or coming back into visibility, and they're actually being like agents for the state in a lot of ways. I mean, there are folks, I'm not going to name names, but you know who you are, who want to hand out water bottles to cops at Black liberation marches or direct action. There are folks who they want to pray it away, or they want to kneel with the police commissioner.
And I want to ask the question. I want to ask the question real quick. Why? Because some of our listeners want to know. Which some of them, why is it problematic in your view of people at protests giving water bottles to cops or taking a knee with the police commissioner? Why are those things not okay?
I think because it's antithetical to Black liberation. Anytime you're handing water to a cop or you're trying to appease the state, you're actually fighting against the concept, idea, and work of Black liberation, because the state needs no appeasement. The state needs no cheerleader, and the state definitely doesn't need folks to be mediator or reconcile between community and them. They know what they're doing. It's intentional. We saw in the Inquirer and other places the history of policing, where it's rooted in slave patrols. So there's, and you talked about earlier on the show, I listened in, about how we're, 401 years, since the first slave ships arrived in Virginia.
Correct.
I think you recalled earlier. So we know the histories. We've had the conversations. We've tried to reconcile. We've tried to work within, and we find ourselves at a moment where there's nothing that remains but abolition at this moment. There's no conversation about holding cops accountable, about putting cameras on their bodies so that we can hold them accountable. There's nothing to be done but to move towards the visions of the world that doesn't include cops. And so
nothing.
In my mind, this is what I'm saying personally.
I'm not hear you. I just think the person that's there, like, I mean, we kind of have run out of ideas. I mean, have we ran out of ideas outside of abolition is the bigger question.
I mean, it's one, we have run out of ideas. Two, the system doesn't want to shift itself, and it can't shift itself. It's committed to those axioms that are the basis of it. And so Black people are never seen as fully human within that context. So there's no way to try to account for the humanity of Black people within a white supremacist system. So there's always been a kind of attempt to correct it, and we find ourselves back at Black people being murdered by the state. So we've had those conversations. We've tried to reconcile. We've done the thing where we said, "Oh, we need more Black cops," right? And we know all the histories of it, and Black cops participate in the state violence that we experience as Black people. I mean, look at the case of Joyce Poirier, who was murdered by 2 Black cops, right, in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah, so we know that there's no good cops in the racist system. We know that cops overwhelmingly are batterers or abused intimate partners. And so there's a whole kind of psychological kind of framework that cops engage in that we can't continue to make investments into if we want a world where Black people are truly free. And that's my perspective. And so when you talk about this current moment, about Black Lives Matter, there's a lot of co-optation. A lot of people want to wear Black Lives Matter T-shirts, make money off of it, or put it in their lawn, or put it in their mission statement. But it's what are you concretely doing from the place that you're situated to actually invest in Black lives, right? It's not enough to be like, oh, BLM, Black Lives Matter. You have to have it live in your actual practice daily. And so if you're not doing that, because there was a march recently of, I guess in the absence of pride, a march for like Black queer lives.
Right.
And we noticed at that march that people were chanting, get up off my neck, which is problematic, right, as a chant, because people died from having a knee on their neck. And so we don't want to trivialize that happened by saying get up.
Right, absolutely.
Right? And it was mostly organized by white people. And so, there's some red flags that we talked about privately, you and I, that to look out for. Like, find out who's organizing the direct action. Find out their background, right?
And this is for the public, just to be clear.
Yes.
So public who's looking, because, there's been a lot of people lately who's been, looking for a protest, looking to get involved. And what are some red flags? You're talking about that right now. Let's talk about these red flags.
Yeah, I mean, one is, a person who is wearing sunglasses. I'm making a pointed remark, but, had a direct action and no one, including the participants, knows who this person is. It's one thing to not be surveilled by the state. It is another thing to be completely anonymous to the folks who are showing up to partake in the action. So you should be known. People should know who you are as an organizer. You shouldn't be trying to talk to cops or get people to bang with the police at an action. You shouldn't be trying to get civil affairs to, help guide the march or guide the direct action. I mean, the state that constantly kills us cannot be the same state that leads in its own abolition or its own accountability. So how are you asking the cops to lead a march about police brutality or securing space for that march?
Wow.
Yeah, that's it's real.
So before we get in, I want to tell our listeners, you were on tonight on Word with special guest, myself, Ernest Owens, as a special guest host, and we have currently longtime Black organizer Abdul Ali Muhammad there with us tonight, talking to us about red flags and current trends and activism happening in Philadelphia. So back to what you were saying, we want to, we have a swath of listeners that have just joined, interesting enough. Must be getting some people interested tonight. So we wanted to, reintroduce. So what you were saying about these red flags?
Yeah, I was saying, so another red flag is the patriarchs of the movement, right? You have these cisgender men who, driven by ego, who are absolutely not accountable to any movement, who hog mics, right? They don't want to give mics to Black women. They don't want to give mics to Black trans people. They don't want to give mics to people who are non-binary, right? They want to sit on the mic and talk and talk and talk, often without uplifting demands of the community. And that's a red flag. You're at an action and someone is very verbose, right? Continues to talk, continues to hog the mic. That action or the organizer, the team, is not invested in the community, right? In the community voice. They're trying to make their own statement and do their own thing, and that is detrimental to the larger work at hand. So that's another red flag. And I would say, I like to be tied to actions that have demands attached, right?
Yeah, let's talk about demands real quick. I want to follow up with some of the callers and some of the stuff that's said. When we talk about taking up the mic, and then I want to talk about these demands, right? Because that is something that is, those two things are side by side. People don't really understand, like when you go to a protest, you might see men speak, and there's some people who have views, I don't want to call it sexist, some people might call it something else, but very patriarchal, right? Which is a form of sexism, I suppose. But they go into this thing where they get on there and it's men talking. They don't let women talk. They don't let other people talk. And there's this idea that, what they're saying is they're talking on behalf of everybody else. And there's a lot of that ego and power tripping and flexing, as I like to call it, that happens at certain protests. And if you witness this type of energy, you're somewhere you shouldn't be. That you're somewhere that might be a little off. And especially when you're talking about Black Lives Matter, because this movement, as I said earlier on the show, was started by 3 Black women, 2 of which were queer. And the movement was meant to be intersectional, which meant that it was meant to include all Black people, LGBTQ, trans people, children, youth, disabled Black folks, poor Black folks, working class Black folks. And we don't talk a lot about the classism that happens in these protests, but it's inclusive of everybody. And so it's sad that we've gotten to a point where the movement work has become, folks have to say all Black Lives Matter as if that wasn't what the movement was already about. But to your point, though, about demands, because a lot of people think that Black folks just go out here and protest and they just mad and they don't have a plan, or they're not thinking, or they're not, all of the ignorant things that we hear. And so let's talk about those demands, as you were saying. What about these protests that don't have demands?
Yeah, I think if the work is truly rooted in our history, it would have demands attached. I mean, Black folks have been leading movements since the beginning of movement formations, right? And so when we're looking at each and every movement, there are demands attached. There's the specificity of those demands and necessity of them at the moment. And so, there can be times when folks do an action, right, and it's about it's a visceral kind of action where it's about getting the feelings and the frustration out. But then there's something to be said about an action that says, no, this is who we're confronting. We have a target. This is our target. The target is the state, right? The target is this institution or this operative in this institution. And this is what this operative in this institution has done to cause harm. Here's what the system has done to cause harm. And here are the demands, right? Here are the community demands. And we want those demands met, right? And that action is a part of a process. That direct action is a part of a process of escalating action to get us to a place where our demands have been met. And those are the kind of things, as someone who, as a co-founder of the Black and Brown Workers Co-op, and we thrive on direct action in the work that we've done and do, that's what I'm looking for in a space, in a public direct action space, right? It's about political theater. It's about directly responding to something, right? I mean, you've been at some of the actions we've done when former director of LGBT affairs was receiving an award, right? This person who didn't want to uplift intersectionality, Nellie Fitzpatrick.
Right. She's now she's fired now. She's not the city anymore.
Yeah.
Let that be known. She lost her job. She doesn't have that job anymore.
Right. We went to an award ceremony and we said, look, you're anti-Black, so here's some anti-Black flowers for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was symbolic, but it was also true. This person thought that Black people could somehow divide their Black self from their LGBTQ self, right? And so that person needed to go. There was another action at Eye Candy, which is a former bar, where there were racialized dress codes being enforced at the door, and we tied Timberland boots to the door, right? Symbolic, yet that was the direct action about the racialized dress code policies there. And there was a way that we could use let's talk about symbolism, because in this moment when we're talking about monuments and white supremacy, how can we use iconography, how can we use symbols to subvert these systems that oppress us? And we did that with the Timberland boots tied around the door of Eye Candy, right? So there's a way that you can take action. There's a way that you can move rage into demand. And those are the kinds of things that I'm interested in.
Absolutely. And I also think, one of the most important things that we lose sight of, and I think there's been conversations of generational divide within protests and whatnot. There's the conversations about, millennials and Gen Zers, right? And how we're, responding differently than those people who were younger than us. You know what I'm saying? It's a different thing. We're seeing a lot of that clashing. What do you say to that? I mean, like, essentially there's a notion that the ways in which millennials and Gen Zers are doing it, our generation, there's a conversation about our respectability and how we, how we are, yada, yada, yada. Like, what, how do we describe that?
Yeah, I think you're right when you said earlier that it's class-driven, right? Oftentimes, when you think of previous movements, like the Civil Rights Movement, there was this buttoned-up image of a reverend, right, who would lead the march. It was this idea that this respectable person in this community, this leader, a lot of times, appointed by folks because of their position of power, could speak for all of us. Well, we know that's not true, because when we're talking about intersectionality, right, which is a theory that was developed by Kimberly Crenshaw, right, specifically talking about Black women in the workplace and how racism and sexism and gender oppression kind of impact Black women in the workplace. When we talk about the movements of our forebears, we have to understand that a lot of times the Black women's labor was erased, right? When we think about Martin Luther King, we don't talk about Coretta Scott, right? When we think about Malcolm X, we don't talk about Betty Shabazz.
Shabazz, yeah.
And what we know about Betty, right, for example, is that Betty was organized in her own right within the NOI. And we know that, there were a lot of leaders, Fannie Lou Hamer, these folks who aren't being uplifted because we come from a history of this idea of movements being led by patriarchs, right? And that's the image, that's the visible image of movement. And so in this moment, that's being disrupted, right? That history is, because it's not true history of what happened. And there was a lot of erasure and a lot of, propping up folks on the work of others. And so we have to be clear about that in the work that we do. And we have to understand that you can organize and lead from where you're located. In class, from the class perspective, you don't have to be this person who is a reverend or someone who leads a nonprofit to be able to speak from your experience about what you see your material conditions are. And that's what the movement of today are telling us. And we try, and our ancestors have done a lot of work. And we know that this idea of we shall overcome it's a great idea, right? We shall overcome our oppression and have like a vision for the future. But it's not enough to just say that we shall. It's not enough to chant that. We have to directly confront in a lot of ways that are specific to our times and look different because, we've done the fight for a civil rights bill, and yet we're still oppressed, right? We've done, hey, let's desegregate, and yet we're still oppressed. And so we have to confront the roots of the system and instead of trying to shift and amend that system. And that looks different from the work that a lot of our people have done before. And, there's been abolitionists, there's been black liberationists who said, like, no, the system can't stand. And that's what we're back at that point where, listen, this has to be radically transformed. It's no, like, amending the thing. This is us visioning a new future. And so that could really shift or confuse people about, like, what are we doing? Are we fighting for body cams for cops? Like, are we trying to end stop and frisk? We're beyond that, right? We're beyond the ending stop and frisk conversation. Because, again, you have people who are political operatives who always fail us, who claim they're going to do something and fix an issue or address it, and they don't, like a Jim Kenney, who participated in using chemical warfare on the residents of Philadelphia during the past uprising.
And I want to break into that real quick. So quickly before we wrap up this segment, what is your thoughts on? I mean, Kenny is, there's a lot of conversation right now. There is a big, huge, massive lawsuit that the city is about to face. I mean, there's two on crazy sides, right? There are police officers who were fired for making racist Facebook posts that are about to do a class action lawsuit against the city for, I believe, $18 million or $16 million, one of those numbers, because of the fact that they're upset that they feel like their First Amendment rights are violated. But then on the other side of this, you have black and brown and protesters who are also considering in the process of suing the city because they felt like their First Amendment rights are violated because the city violated police ordinances and policies that tear gassed them and other atrocities. So in a quick nutshell, what do you think is the response or should be the consequence potentially for the city, for the mayor, for the police commissioner dealing with this?
Well, I feel like the mayor should resign. I feel like Jim Kenney, to your point, should resign. I mean, you wrote very eloquently and very, very pointedly about this recently. So I appreciate your writing around it. And I think that this calls for that kind of accountability where that person should not be in office because there's no trust. There's no trust in the mayor. And we see the difference between – this is a perfect example about what black people talk about, right? You had the bat-wielding white folks in Fishtown. You got the folks in South Philly, the white supremacists in in South Philadelphia trying to guard the Columbus statue. You have this racial terrorism from white people, and that's met with, they are protecting the cops and property, right? But when you have black folks confronting the system, saying, no, you can't kill us, you can't, we're demanding that you understand that we won't take this anymore, then that's met with tear gas and rubber bullets to the head. There's data, like some kind of emerging anecdotal data that suggests that, chemical weapons alter everything from like someone's menstrual cycle to other things in their bodies. And so you use weaponry, wartime and weaponry on your citizens who are standing up for black lives, but you have white folks just running amok in Philadelphia, and there's no accountability. So that's a very clear example of white supremacy at play, and the mayor is a part of that system. And so he needs to be accountable and resign because no one can trust him. I mean, he's already flip-flopped on so many different issues like stop and frisk. And he always comes late to the party. You were late to the party with the Rizzo statue. First you were going to move it, then it was, no, I'm not going to move it, or there's other pressing issues. And then when people were like, nah, you're going to move this statue, all of a sudden it's going into dark storage. And you have all these things to say about Rizzo. And so that person just can't, he's not a person of his word. He doesn't have any integrity. And we've seen that time and time again. And he's not honest, because there were moments when he did things like disclose an HIV status of a city staff person, and he didn't own up to it. So he's unable to be honest. And so he needs to go.
Gotcha. So thank you so much for coming on. For listeners tuning in, we had our special guest for the first half of the hour, longtime Black community organizer Abdul Ali Muhammad, who has really much conveyed a lot of the sentiment of a lot of nuanced concerns and complexities that are happening right now in Philadelphia's activism scene and beyond, and really gave some people some really strong red flags to look out for. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to be taking callers next, you all, so stay tuned. We're on tonight on Word. We're going to be taking callers. I know a lot of you all have been waiting to chime in. It's going to be a lot of you all, so we're going to take the next quarter of the show to take your questions, and we'll be right back. Thank you for coming on, Abdul.
Get your money straight. Get my money right. It's Solomon Jones and Akbar Hassan. Fridays on Wake Up with Word. 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. Hosted by Solomon Jones. Exclusively on Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app.
Do you need health insurance for your children? The Children's Health Insurance Program, also known as CHIP, provides quality, affordable health insurance for Pennsylvania kids. CHIP ensures that kids can go to the doctor, receive health screenings and vaccines, and get what they need to live a healthy childhood. Families can be covered by CHIP no matter how much money they make. If you've experienced a recent change in employment or income, CHIP may be a good option for your family. Visit chipcoverspakids.com to apply or learn more.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
No fear, just facts. WURD.
I ain't no better than you, and you ain't no better than me. But we all have something in common. We all are in species, seeds of God's creation.
Tune in to Messages in the Music every Friday night with Joey T, midnight to 6 a.m. right here on WURD.
My dad came to live with us last month, and it's going pretty well.
I feel like I never have time for myself.
With him being around more, it really lets us catch up on things.
His memory isn't what it used to be.
We get up and we have coffee.
He usually wakes up at 4:30.
Then we go for a walk.
He needs lots of my attention.
I do need to keep an eye on his medications, though. That's important.
Sometimes I feel like a pharmacist.
I'd say John and the kids are adjusting pretty well.
They honestly have no idea what I'm going through.
It can be a little challenging.
Help.
But so far, so good.
I could really use just a little help.
For those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers for advice, tips, and support. Together, let's help each other better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
My mom is stronger than anyone I've ever known. Growing up when life got hard, her strength helped pull us through. Even after her heart failure diagnosis, she remained stronger than ever.
My family's support keeps me strong. Together, we're rising above heart failure.
Heart failure doesn't have to steal your strength. For simple steps you can take to help prevent, improve, or manage heart failure, go to riseabovehf.org.
Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. Word TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Independent Black Media.
And we're back. We're taking callers. This is definitely, you're tuning in to Tonight on WRD with your special guest host, myself, Ernest Owens. And we waited for this segment. We're taking callers. We're taking callers for this part. And then at the next half of the show, the caller's number is 215-634-8065. And then we're going to be having our final special guest for the final quarter of the show, Miss Sharon Cooks. The toll-free number is 1-866-361-0900. Again, the toll-free number is 1-866-361-0900, and the caller number is 215-634-8065. Again, the number is 215-634-8065. That's the caller number. Our special guest is going to come on at the end of the quarter, but we're going to take some calls right now. First caller in is Bill from Germantown. Thank you for waiting with us, Bill. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, good evening, Brother Ernest.
How are you?
I'm an older brother, and I'm happy to say that I participated in the co-opted, not by us, but co-opted by others, Black Power and Black Cultural Revival movement of the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
I saw the slaughter of the Panthers, the Revolutionary Action Movement people, and various other groups that had justified rage and impatience. I would just warn all of you that you have a plan for what you do and stick to that plan. And I hope that reparations is a part of that plan, because I've heard from a number of people that what they've heard from the Black Lives Matter movement of list of demands, that reparations is not one of them. That's my piece.
Thank you for that very informative and brief contribution. Do we have any more callers calling in? Thank you for that. Very good points, too. The conversation of reparations is a very nuanced conversation. Personally, I'm not against reparations in theory, but I'm very cynical if it can actually happen and how it can happen. I think personally, it's kind of hard to wonder, oh, well. We have Maurice from Southwest Philly. I wonder if it's this Maurice that I know. I could be wrong. All right, Maurice from Southwest Philly, what's up?
My hero, how you doing?
It's you. How are you?
Hey, listen, I was listening earlier when you was talking about the warning signs.
Yeah, the red flags. Yep.
The red flags. I'm sorry, my mistake. The red flags. And what I see red flags is when I see somebody that's leading a protest march or supposed to be head of associated with the protest march, chummying up with people from city council. Maybe they got one or two city council persons by their side. Right then and there, I know they are fraud or fugazi.
You are here with it. You are here with it, Maurice. I agree with you. I feel like Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I like to listen to what you say, but what I'm saying is, we all know that our city council are the disciples of hell.
Yes.
And we only have two of all the businesses in the city. If coronavirus was to stop today and everything went back to normal, black people would still be in the rut, because at the time before the coronavirus, we had 2.5% of the businesses in the city.
That's
now,
right. I reported on that.
Right now, we're probably under 1% because a lot of people could not regain from the deficit.
Agreed.
So I'm just saying that when you see politicians jumping up there or standing in the background and they always referring to them and bringing them on front, show me one council person, just one, that has done something for black people. And you would think, when people look at why Philadelphia is the poorest city, you would think that would be their number one goal to get us out that rut. But they don't. And when they don't bring it up in city council, or they don't say anything to the police about the violence, because I'm pretty sure that skin color they got on is not painted on. So they know what is going on in the street, because as far as they're concerned, they could get pulled over and not be recognized and go through the scrutiny. So I'm just saying, listen, let's not get divorced when we say we want to stop and frisk, and then they throw a holiday at us and we forget what the goal is. That's all I wanted to say.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I agree 100%. I think, one of the things that I have been, very critical of my time is this logic where politicians want to play activists. You are public officials. Taxpayers pay you to legislate, to create policies so that we will not have to be out here protesting like we do. I mean, there's always going to be a time and place for protest because things are not perfect. But I do think it says something that we are having politicians out here who claim these titles. They say things like, "Oh, what they say, things like, I'm for the people." Okay, you can be for the people, but to me, it's like Maurice said, it's a little bit of fraudulence to be out in these crowds, okay, with your constituents. And doing the whooms and the ha's and the dances and the songs and the protest chants, as if you are on the same level of them when you have the power and you've been elected to legislate and create policies to make a difference, but you want to be out here to protest with them like you don't have a responsibility. I think that's the thing that we don't talk about.
I just like to put something in that collection plate, brother.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because you preaching tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think that we've had a lot of great callers. Bill had a really, straight to the point. The callers tonight are on a roll. I'm happy. I think we can take one more call before we go to break. Again, the caller number is 215-634-8065. Again, the number is 215-634-8065. And that toll-free number is 1-866-361-0900. Again, the toll-free number is 1-866-361-0900. But I thought the callers that we did have on so far, they made some really good points. I mean, let's keep it 100. I mean, you really get to a point where we're tired, especially black politicians, right? I mean, in a city like Philadelphia, we are a majority black and brown city, okay? There's no denying the melanin in Philadelphia. Philadelphia without melanin is like watermelon without a rind and seeds. Like, you just don't have anything. I mean, really, you don't have the flavor. You don't even have the basis of what it can be. And so I think it's really something to be said for the fact that when it comes to us with our black politicians, we need to keep it 100 on this point. And this might be a little rugged, but we as a community have to get beyond the identity politics. And what I mean by identity politics is that we get caught up in representation alone. We say things like, "Oh my goodness, this is a black politician, and I really like them because they're black, and we got to vote for them because they're black," and we should, right? Like, I do want to, support black political power, but it's got to be black political power. And what does black political power mean? Black political power means power from a black source that is meant to provide influence to black people. I'm not saying that they can't support other folks, but it just seems like every time we get black politicians, they know how to support every other group, and somehow they skip their own community. It's like their community gets put on the back burner. You're representing North Philly, West Philly, Southwest Philly, parts of these areas that are largely black. So when people are saying, pay attention to your community, your people, your communities, a lot of these are largely black communities. Pay attention to black people and their concerns. Know your audience. Know the room. I think they always say, read the room. Read the room. And so we're going to talk to a black woman business owner in the few, but thank you for your calls. We are going to move on and take some breaks. We got to pay some bills. And then when we get back on, we're going to have this incredible black local businesswoman from West Philly, in West Philly area. Her name is Sharon Cooks. She's going to be on with us live very soon. We got to pay some bills, and we'll be right back.
Dietz & Watson has been making premium meats and artisan cheeses for over 80 years. And when it comes to stacking sandwiches and party platters, they've got something for everyone in the family, like maple honey turkey breast, American cheese, buffalo chicken, and more. So get to your local deli and taste 4 generations of family recipes. With Dietz & Watson on the table, you'll have everyone coming back for seconds and thirds. Dietz & Watson, it's a family thing since 1939. This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. Support independent black media and join the onWURD movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com. Word TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at onWURD. Word TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
All right, we're back on. It's lit. Our special guest is on standby, but we want to take 2 callers. I think if they're still on, very quickly. Let's get with Al from South Philly. If you're there, Al, are you there?
Hey, my brother. Good to hear you on the air.
Thank you. Thank you. What's up?
You know, I got a big concern here. I really was hoping to be able to talk to the guy who was on a little earlier, the brother who was on a little earlier.
Abdul Ali?
Yeah, because I'm just concerned whether or not he's aware of the fact that we cannot match the most highly trained killers in the history of the earth, bullet for bullet, tear gas for tear gas, bomb for bomb, or anything else violence-wise. Now, I'm not one of those people who says, let's just all hold hands and march together and sing Kumbaya. But I'm saying right now, some of the things I'm seeing playing out on TV are playing right into the hands of the Boogaloos and others who want to push this country into a re-election of Donald Trump, because it's scaring the hell out of a lot of folks. And I'm not against scaring the hell out of people, but strategically, I don't want to scare the hell out of people who are going to put a Donald Trump back into office and back up his efforts and others like him to actually annihilate us while we try to get the things that we need to have done. We got to, in my opinion, this is my one man's opinion.
Right.
We have to be strategic in these things. I mean, you know, Ron Karenga, the professor who established Kwanzaa, he said something very wise when I've heard him speak a couple of times when he's come to Philadelphia, and that is, we got to call people to rise to those lofty things that they say in their religions and in their constitution and elsewhere. Now, we may think that they will fail and not do it, but at least we will have made that effort to do it, and when they don't do it, then we have to be ready to deal with what will be the consequences of it. But I'm thinking right now, I think some of these actions I'm seeing on TV are being guided by the Boogaloos in terms of some of the violence, and maybe by Antifa with their perhaps goals of destroying capitalism And I think we must not be used by these people to accomplish their goal.
All right. Thank you for your contribution. I want to get to Moses from Dale County before we get into our special guest.
Yes.
Hi, Moses.
Again, yeah.
I can hear you.
I'm a long-time listener. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
Long-time listener and first-time caller.
Okay.
And I love the topic and your discussion. That's why it made me to call. I used to listen to WURD. Reggie Bryan was on board. May God bless his soul. Rest in peace. The subject matter here you are presenting or discussing is very interesting to me. I've been in this country over almost 50 years. My question to you and the audience, what exactly Black America wants from America?
Mm-hmm.
Other than protesting, riots, why don't we focus on what we actually can do for ourselves? The Black leader that was mentioned earlier, mayors, reverends, R. Shopping, Jesse Jackson, all of the Black mayors and major cities, why don't you think about doing something for the Black community? Example, vocational schools, program that can uplift Black America. They ask for the votes, they get richer, they're going to be millionaires, millionaires, almost most of them. But Black America is still going down the opposite, down the drain. Riot and violence not going to help Black America, in my opinion.
All right. Thank you for your opinion. Thank you for calling. So we are currently on Tonight on Word with special guest host, myself, Ernest Owens. And we have a very special guest on tonight, which kind of fulfills some of the conversations we've had tonight. Part of the importance of, supporting Black businesses is supporting Black women businesses, especially those that are in our own backyards and our communities in Philadelphia. My special guest tonight is a woman who owns her own business in Philadelphia. She has done a lot of work. She's worked in, Philadelphia politics. She's done community activism work and organizing work. She has done a lot of consultation in various marginalized communities. She holds a bachelor's degree from Arcadia University and a master's degree from Temple University. And she is the CEO and founder of her own company, Making Our Lives Easier, LLC, which is a very highly sought after and impressive consulting company. Without further ado, Ms. Sharon Cooks, welcome to Tonight on Word.
Thank you so much, Ernest. I really appreciate that. And thank you to everyone at Word. It's great to be on tonight. You've had some really interesting guests. It's been a great show.
Yes, it's been a lively show. And, I think one of the most important pillars of the conversation that, we talk about the activism, we talk about the riots and the protests. How are you observing all this as a Black woman business owner in Philadelphia?
Well, it's very interesting. I think that there was another guest that you had on that made mention of all of a sudden now people want to come out and proclaim that they're Black businesses when in all reality, prior to all of this propaganda is what I think it has turned into, this Black Lives Matter, and it's turned into a lot of propaganda. And when anything goes mainstream, it begins to be propagandized, and you start to see a lot of performative things that are starting to go on. A lot of the work that I do is generally with nonprofit organizations, and COVID-19 has really impacted that. So I think that people, oftentimes, overlook people that are independent and working in the field and are also organizing around issues that have to do with race and have to do with gender. And there are these lines that we have to tote. So from my particular perspective, I'm looking at everything that's going on in the sense of, what can we do for the people who don't necessarily have the resources that other people have, like while all of this stuff is going on, while looting is going on, while protests are going on, there are actually people that are, like you mentioned earlier, that are food deprived, there are people who are, housing insecure. And, what can I do as a business owner to help provide resources, quality resources and information that's actually going to help guide them through what we're going through right now?
Very good question. Very good points. And it made me think of a question out of that was that, we are, looking at a moment in time where someone was saying on social media that a lot of people who have been committed to building their brands, to building their businesses, to doing certain things are, the city isn't as responsive to providing them the resources as actively as they are responding to a lot of the unrest, the civil unrest. And I don't think there should be an either or. I think both should be done at the same time. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't think that, we're talking about a larger issue here when we talk about Black businesses, particularly in Philadelphia. I don't know if people know, but, there is another it's not just good enough to be a Black-owned business. You also have to be certified as a minority-owned business and to be able to get a lot of those contracts.
Oh, wow.
So, I think that you have to, what I am, leaning toward is actually, I do a study group. It is called, I participate in a study group which is called Revolutionary Education and Dialogue. And the tutors of that group are really helping me understand that we have to develop a Black social theory, and that because what ends up happening is that as a Black businesswoman, I end up emulating these same white supremacist tactics of exploitation. And what I'm trying to do with my company is have more of a more equity and more balance, and not have to exploit my own community to get ahead. And I think earlier on in the conversation with a lot of what the caller said is that until we as Black people end up developing a Black social theory, which according to Dr. Bobby E. Wright, determines the destiny of a people, which establishes objectives and guidelines for their existence. It determines their relationships with other living things, values, and rituals. It's methods of child rearing and education. And until we can start actually integrating that type of Black social theory, engineers, teachers, philosophers, journalists, activists, politicians, until we can start seeing things and defining things for our own selves as a Black community, we'll never be able to achieve this illusion of equality or liberation or, the same type of economic sustainability that other white businesses have. So actually leaning toward developing institutions that are more Black-centered and Black-focused is what I, as a Black businesswoman, am leaning toward in this moment, because a lot of the things, like I said before, are starting to be propagandized. Businesses don't want to be burned down now because, Black Lives Matter. So if I slap a sign onto my business, that all of a sudden means that, I'm inclusive of Black people and I respect Black people and I think that they deserve, to be treated as human. That's not what that means. It just means that they're trying to protect their own self-interest. So until we, as the Black community, move past that and move past that as a Black business community and realizing that our whole social system, being a Black business owner, being a Black female business owner, it all revolves around capitalism. And capitalism is predicated on exploiting Black bodies. So the conflict that I have is, how do I operate my business without exploiting my own people?
A very powerful question. I think politicians ask the same thing. How do they serve their Black constituents without exploiting them, right? I think every Black person in America who is, either an entrepreneur, a business owner, a politician, a civil servant, I think they're all trying to figure out, how do I do this? I mean, even as a Black journalist, I have had to do a lot of deep searching and soul searching in the type of coverage, right? Am I exploiting my community? Am I, not giving voices to the table? I mean, let me be clear. I think I do a good job at what I do when it comes to that.
You do a very good job.
I try, but I think a lot of my fellow journalists in the business are not as good at it. There are other radio stations, no shade. And, there's a lot of different situations where I feel like they don't do the work to really do the soul searching. And you really have left us some really strong gems as we, close out this show. But you've really left us a lot of gems to think about. I think this is important. Like this whole episode, this whole special tonight has really been talking about, the spotlight, the contributions, what we do as a community, what are our priorities. I mean, we've talked about a lot. We had an attorney who was, dealing with the Boy Scouts and how that institution has exploited several young men, including some young Black men who were victims. We talked about how activism itself has evolved. And now we're looking at, Black institutions, business owners, politicians, and their role in this, right? It's so many layers. It's so many layers and so much nuance. And you've brought us with a good point. How do we do what we do without exploiting ourselves? Wrapping up, I really want to know, what are some things that this experience, the protest, the pandemic, what are some things that you're taking away that you're learning about yourself, your business ethics specifically? What are those things that you're taking away with you, that you haven't before? And this is, again, Sharon Cooks, who's the CEO of Making Our Lives Easier, LLC, which is a Black-owned business in Philadelphia. She is a Temple grad, or Temple and Arcadia grad, who's done a lot of work with nonprofits in the area, has done some work in the political arena, in the city arena, has a really nuanced background in city and government nonprofit work. And we're great to have her on the show this evening. I'm closing this out, but what are some things that you've learned from this experience?
You learned from this experience is that that there are ways to offer resources to people. I think you mentioned earlier about food insecurity and food shortages, and now all of a sudden, people are starting to give food. I think what is coming out of this is that there's very innovative ways to do business. People don't necessarily have to be in the office. There are some things that can be taken care of remotely. I do think that taking a step back from office politics and the microaggressions and all of that, and being able to work from home in your own space, I think that for some people, for me, it does make me more productive, and I think it's very helpful. So for me, it's just been a time of, self-reflecting on how I can narrow and hone in and focus on the direction I want my business to go in, and just kind of sort of ride this ship of the pandemic out as best as possible, because, small businesses like mine and people who have, work independently, we're not getting those, those big dollars like, other organizations and companies are. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Where can people find you at your website for your business before we wrap up?
www.makingourliveseasier.org, and you can also find it on Facebook, Making Our Lives Easier. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, everyone, to Word. Thank you so much, Ernest.
Thank you so much, Sharon. So that wraps up our evening tonight. This was great. We were tonight on WRD. It's about to be 9 o'clock. I had Fogo de Chao for dinner. It was great having you all on. Each morsel was good. I don't know what I'm going to have for dessert. I think I'm just going to have some leftover mangoes that I haven't, ravished. I hope that you all are taking care of yourselves tonight and taking care of yourself this week. July is in. Put on a facial mask. Take naps. Drink water. Relax. Be alive. Be lively. And really, savor this moment the best you can. And we're off. Reverend Al Sharpton is coming on. Your host, Ernest Owens. I'm out tonight. And get ready to listen to Reverend Al Sharpton in the next hour, and the next couple of minutes, actually. Good night, be well, and take care.
The structure was made to make us the enemy. Praying for change cause the pain makes you tender. All of the names you refuse to remember. But somebody's brother, friend or son to a mother that's crying, saying, I can't breathe. You're taking my life from me.
Check out the Source lineup on Word Radio.